Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Middle Archives. Next week is Chav Bei Shvat, the Yortzeit of our Rebbetzin. So I want to read to you a letter that somebody wrote to the Rebbe, and he wrote to the Rebbe something about the Rebbetzin, and that I'll mention towards the end of this program. But I just want to tell you, and maybe I mentioned it once, I saw the Rebbetzin many times when I was a bocher. She was going upstairs to her mother, to her sister. But I want to tell you, 2 years after I was married, my father-in-law lived in Long Beach, Long Island. And Manya, we know Manya was the nurse of the Rebbetzin Shtel Nesore. Manya was the nurse. Here we have a picture of Manya and the Rebbetzin. This Manya gave me that picture. Rebbetzin Shtel Nesore. Then she became a nurse for the Frierdiker Rebbe. And she was like a daughter to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And when the Frierdiker Rebbe used to give presents to her, to his two daughters, so he gave also a present to her. She lived upstairs before she was married. Then the Frierdiker Rebbe made the shidduch, and the whole thing about the shidduch, which I'm not going to go into now, because it's we don't have time for that. So Manya was married after, and they lived in Long Beach also, very close to the Mindels. So 2 years after I was married, it was Yud Shvat. So my father-in-law drove to Fabringen. So before Manya called my father and he asked him, he says, Rabbi Mindel, can I have a ride with you? Because I want to go to the Rebbetzin. Manya used to sit with the Rebbetzin hours and hours and hours and speak in the phone. I don't think that the Rebbetzin ever had such a close friend. She called her like a sister mamish. She sat with her hours and hours, years and years. They're very close. From 1940, when she came to when the Rebbetzin came in 41, she was upstairs the whole time. So she was very close to her. So he asked her, drop me off by the Rebbetzin, and I will, and you go to Fabringen, and then pick me up. Anyways, so he dropped her off. My father-in-law parked the car in this house. He went to Fabringen. In those days, the Rebbe Fabringen till about 2:30 in the morning. So after Fabringen, he came here, and he asked me, can you do me a favor, go to Rebbetzин's house and pick up Manya and bring her here, and I'll take her to Long Beach. So I took the car, I went to Rebbetzин's house, I knocked on the door. The Rebbetzin opened the door, and I said, I'm here for Manya. She says like this, just a minute. She went and she told her, and while Manya was getting ready, she went to the door, she says, come in. I was nervous, I think I was 24 years old, and I was very nervous in front of the Rebbetzin. And she says, come in, and she wanted to make a conversation. While we were talking, I had an envelope in my pocket. And I touched, I lost it. And I got very nervous. There was some money there. And so the Rebbetzin saw I was nervous. So the Rebbetzin looked at me. I said to the Rebbetzin, I hope I didn't leave anything here. So the Rebbetzin smiled, and she said to me, of course you left. You left a good impression. This is the Rebbetzin. This is the way the Rebbetzin was. So I want to tell you the story of the Rebbetzin. Now, my wife and her mother went to visit the Rebbetzin in the library the last Shmini Atzeres. She passed away in Shvat. That Shmini Atzeres, Shmini Atzeres. A Shaina Rabbo, she called this house, and she wanted to speak to Mrs. Mendel. They're very close. And she asked Mrs. Mendel to come to visit. She said, I'm Mr. Schneerson, whatever. So my wife went to visit the Rebbetzin in the library, and they were sitting about 45 minutes, I think, together with the mother. But the only time I met her is like this. The Rebbetzin, those days, even in those days, this was in the 60s, in the 70s, we think that the library, the Rebbe's library, we think it's in the 80s. This was the Rebbe's library. The Rebbe worried about the library even years before. I have a letter here. The Rebbe writes to Mr. Yisrael Leib Lavut. The Rebbe writes, I was very pleased to receive regards from you and also your very kind gift, Luach Jerusalem 5627, with handwriting annotations by your grandfather and my great-grandfather. Levut was the Rebbe's great-grandfather. Rabbi Avram David Levut. It will make a cherished addition to my library. This was written years ago. And I trust will be also a practical usefulness. Consequently, if you or your brother have other material by other ancestors, such letters, notes, and so on, I would very much appreciate it if you would make them available to my library as a gift or as a loan. I will remember you and your wife in prayer in accordance with the contents of your letter. May God grant that you should have good news to report on the above, and that together with your brother and all the members of your family should continue the great tradition of your and my distinguished ancestors, Rabbi Adi Lavut, of blessed memory, that you should do so in good health and a happy frame of mind to ripe old age. And when you will show this, the Rebbe wrote here that my wife will also be happy. That means that the Rebbe was concerned about the library years ago. This is why I read this letter. Now I want to read to you a letter that someone wrote to the Rebbe. This is in 1968. Dear Rabbi Schneerson, in my letter to you in March, I explained that we had followed the advice you gave me on last Yutes Kislev regarding observance of the laws of family purity. As you know, my wife had not had her period without the aid of drugs for over 5 years and had stopped ovulating. Following our meeting, my wife's period began to occur for several months. The doctor said an improvement had occurred, but that my wife was not yet ovulating. In June, my wife's period returned again. We just learned that my wife is now 2 months pregnant. The doctor said it was a miracle. He, of course, did not know that we had been following your advice. I wish to thank you for your prayers and advice. At times like this, however, the joy is so great that I do not know what to say. As you know, I have a PhD in engineering and have devoted my life to scientific analysis and explanation in a deep, mysterious way. There is no question that Hashem acted as he did for his wife, and he named his wife's name. I feel in a way that I have devoted my life to an incorrect set of premises which merely mask reality. Tomorrow I shall become 32 years old. I wish now to become learned in the Torah. I also wish to offer my time and energy to your movement in any way that you might consider useful. And at the bottom, the Rebbe, this was in 68, the Rebbe made an arrow, and the Rebbe wrote, to contribute to my library. This was in 1968, the Rebbe wrote. The Rebbe did. Now, I'm going to say, now this paragraph is important. my wife had called your wife, the Rebbetzin, and told her about the miracle you did. The Rebbetzin reply to her was, just like my father performed miracles, same is my husband. He is an extension of my father. My father loved every Jew, same is my husband. My father, and this is what I should have showed. I didn't see it before. My father belonged to Chassidim, so my husband. And at the position of when the Rebbetzin, then there was a stenographer. He was one of my Balchuvas. His name is David Levy. He told me a few things about the Rebbe. The Rebbetzin asked him about certain things. So that's something that I want to talk about another time. What the Rebbetzin spoke with David Levy. In Mitzvah Hashem, next week we'll continue our weekly program.